for me, Aimee.
But once you get it, once you learn and understand the ropes, it gets a little easier. But we're live on LinkedIn. We're live here in Zoom. So welcome everybody to our What's the Buzz monthly chat series. I'm going to hit record and then we will get started. Go. Okay. I see some familiar names on here. Dory and Evan, welcome. You guys are here a lot. I appreciate it. And Evan was one of our winners of Acumatica Demo Day back in February. So, yep, that's exciting. So, welcome to our What's the Buzz monthly chat series. As you know, it's the second Tuesday of every month right here on Zoom and LinkedIn Live at 4 p.m. Eastern for 20 minutes. I always try to bring on some new guests every month to share some tips and tricks or insights, buzzwords as AI. So that's what we're talking all about today, which is very exciting. And we always are excited to bring you this educational, informational content each month. So thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Aimee Keenan, founder of the ISV Society, and started these monthly chats a couple of years ago, and slowly they've been building and gaining traction. So very excited to have you all here with us today. So today it's all about no more BS, cold hard facts about integrating your AI with your ERP and other business data. So we're digging into one of those biggest questions business leaders are asking right now, which is when is the right time to integrate AI with your ERP and other business systems? Spoiler alert, the answer is probably right now. So we're here not to only sell the hype, we're here to cut through the noise. We're here to talk about what's actually going to take to make AI deliverable, measurable results. And joining me today is Martin Olsen and Katie Soderberg from eOne Solutions. Welcome, Martin and Katie, to the What's the Buzz?
Glad to be here, Aimee. Thank you.
Yeah, so excited to have you both here today to talk about this because obviously it's a huge topic. I know a lot of people are talking about AI, but what it really means in this ecosystem and working within your ERP and other business systems. So, Martin, before we get into AI, can you give listeners a quick background on eOne? What does your team do, and how does it connect to this bigger conversation about ERP and data integration?
Uh, Perfect. I'd love to. For 24 years now, eOne has been trying to take the development out of making your ERP and CRM and other business systems work for you. So we believe most mid-market companies don't employ developers, shouldn't employ software developers. And so our mission is to put the power back in the hands of the everyday user, of the controller, of the CFO, of the business analyst, and let them maintain their systems without ever calling a programmer. So we did that, back in starting off with GP, with SmartList Builder and Extender, which was a development tool for GP without writing code, led to taking eConnect and then the event development of APIs as they came along. So building a whole tool around bringing API functionality back to end users. So I can't write code that calls an API and XML and so forth. So we said, let's build a tool that gives them that. That leads to where we're at today, which is, hey, how do we do AI without a developer? I don't want to call an AI developer. They cost $1,000 an hour, and they think they're really fancy and they don't know much. And I want to cut them out. So how do I leverage AI without going through a massive, expensive project, and bring that back? Democratize AI. So, for us, we're in a perfect place. The tools we've built over the years is one, access to data. So how do I get access to all the data in my business systems, be that ERP, CRM, expense management, e-commerce, and every company I know uses somewhere between 15 and 20, sometimes 100 different applications to run their business. So we want to provide access to that data. And then the other piece of AI is really taking action on what AI helps you learn, which ties back with integration. So the two tools we built, there happens to be a perfect storm right now that needs both, and it's built into AI. So we're pretty excited about where we accidentally landed as a company 24 years on. You just never know which way it's going to take you.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm very excited to chat about this today. So, Katie, let's start with the elephant in the room. Everyone's trying AI, but most companies say they're not seeing much impact. So, what's going on there?
Yeah, so I mean, there's been a lot of uptake on AI and generative AI with tools that a lot of us are familiar with, like ChatGPT and Copilots. It's really taken off in terms of people trying it out, which is great. And that's where we start. At this point, there is a lot of research on the impact so far. And one of the studies I was just reading about was well, they did a survey, McKinsey and Company did a survey, and close to 80% of the companies that responded are piloting or they're using generative AI, but a lot of them are not seeing bottom line results yet. So why is that? I think there's a number of reasons, but I do think a big part of it is that AI is being used in a really shallow way so far. We don't have it embedded in the core processes to get really deep with it and drive that meaningful impact. I also think there's a few other factors with that. As far as launching a new technology or a business initiative in a company, it's important that it's strategic. And when it comes to AI, with a lot of people dabbling, you could be ending up with agent sprawl. It's not really driven from a strategy, which can lead to risks for the company. I also think data and how you handle the data and the governance for your data that you're connecting to your AI is a big challenge. It has taken companies, and it's more enterprise companies that are having the investment and are able to tackle the investment to be really intentional about how they feed data into their AI. So those are a couple of the things. And I also just think your core processes have to be pretty figured out. If your finance team is still reconciling data across spreadsheets, if you throw a chatbot on top of that, that becomes a real big mess. So it's really important to back up and get organized on how we want to use this as a company, or what your strategy really is. What is the thing we're going to focus on first? Otherwise, it can lead to a lot of challenges, more challenges, really.
Yeah, I'll jump in there quick,
Yeah.
Aimee. One thing there, I think, and why people aren't getting ROI is they're not imagining yet what AI can do for them. So they're trying to speed up something they already do. How do we make that one thing I already do a little bit better, a little quicker? And that means, yeah, you get to go home 10 minutes earlier, or you get to go home an hour earlier, or you don't have to work overtime anymore. But that's not changing the bottom line for anyone. So it's imagining, what can AI do that physically was impossible to do before? And I think that's where the game changer comes in. So we'll explore some of those as we go through, but it's a complete mind shift. I've been buried in this stuff for 3 or 4 months now. And it's a slow progression for us to understand what AI can do. I've been around technology all my life, and it's hard for me to go outside of the box. I was working with our team yesterday, and they're like, hey, we need AI to write the SQL code to achieve something. And that's the complete backwards thought. You don't need the SQL code anymore, but that's how we've been wired. So we had to skip a step. Why would you write that? Oh, because we trust the SQL code. But if you can let AI write the SQL code, then you already trust the AI, but you're more comfortable with SQL code. So we've got to write this. Well, that's completely wrong. So it's throwing away. If we want really bottom line returns, we've got to completely rethink how we think about things, and it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. You can't sit through a half-day lecture and go, oh, I got it. It's taken me, my poor developers, I sit with them and ask stupid questions for hours and hours and hours. I go back over that again because I don't get it. So it's a big mind shift.
It is, definitely. It's a big undertaking, right? Just like anything else, you really have to take a step back and look at what you really want to get out of it and what you need to get out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Katie, there's a lot of talk about agentic AI. Can you explain how that's different from the tools people are used to?
Yes. Yeah. So think of traditional generative AI as a smart assistant. So your helper. It can answer questions, it can summarize information, can draft content, but it's reactive. And you need to feed a really good prompt as well to get good results. Now, agentic AI, I think of more closer to a collaborator. It's a teammate. An agent, like an intelligent agent, can actually plan and remember things. it can take actions, it can adapt, it can get smarter and better. So when I think of those two things, I think of traditional generative AI answering more of the what's happening. And then I think of agentic AI more about how can I make things happen in a smarter way and adapt and get even better and more efficient at that task. So just to give you an example, if I was asking a chatbot what invoices are overdue versus just pulling that data, like an agentic AI, you could prompt a full task set around it, an agentic workflow where it pulls the overdue task list, or excuse me, overdue list from ERP. It could check payment records, it could draft the emails that would go to the vendors, and then potentially make decisions on who to send that approval email out to or that draft to make sure it goes to the next step. So it's a series of things. And again, I would think of AI, like agentic AI, more as a teammate, a collaborator. How do you do more on your team with AI?
I like that. And from, I guess, from a standard out of the box approach versus eOne's approach, Martin, what would you say about that?
Yeah, and again, this is part of my learning, but where we want to fit in and what we're building is, you can ask ChatGPT now, did man walk on the moon? Which is what we all use it for, and it knows that. It also knows what day during September is it most likely that there'll be a hummingbird landing in my backyard, and it knows, geography, and it's learned all those things. The one thing it doesn't know anything about is your business. It has no idea how you do business or your business data or what you've got in your ERP or CRM or every other business system you use. And so our mission is to interpret your business and share that with a controlled and secure private AI environment that can deal with that. So, the examples there is when if you expose your ERP now, there's only certain people in the company that you let access to certain data. You're not going to let the whole company start asking questions about your ERP. You can say, hey, okay, this group of people can ask questions about sales, but they can't ask questions about margin because we hide that from certain people. So you've got to be able to tell it that. And that's what a lot of the models at the moment saying, hey, let's just dump all your data into a data lake and let people look at it. It's like, that's kind of crazy. So those big projects become a 12-month project, throw all this data and emails and have it all connected. The 12-month integration project, which would be great for us because we sell integration tools, but it's the last thing we want to do. It's messy, it's complex, it's expensive, it takes a whole year. And by then you've gone on to 6 more projects and you don't need that anyway. So we want to interpret your business, let you explain exactly how you do business, exactly how your data hangs together, and expose that to an AI so it's smarter and it knows how you work. Then users with the right security are able to ask the right questions. So it kind of leads to some of the use cases of, hey, I want to go and grab all the data. Well, everybody that bought a particular SKU from me back in February. Turns out we've heard some complaints and maybe there was a bad batch that got out 6 months ago. So I want to pull that data and I want AI to go, hey, here's the volumes each customer purchased. Then I want to say, now tell me about their support sentiment. How are they feeling? And AI then says, hey, I know that. I can go off to Zendesk or Salesforce or wherever that help desk center is and calculate a sentiment. And it goes, oh, cool, I've got a sentiment. And then it matches those together and go, hey, of those customers that bought that product 6 months ago, 10% of them are really angry. And then I get to say, and that's something I couldn't do before, to determine a sentiment out of support matched with people that bought in a particular cohort. So now I'm smarter than I was before. And to get a sentiment, I would have had to walk around, ask every help desk agent, hey, how's it going? What do they think? And each one gives me a different answer, and I'm no smarter than I was before. But now I've got that. Then I can say, hey, let's trigger something in for my customer success team to start making calls and or making a special offer or telling them about the new product that we've got that replaces the one that was faulty back in February, and we complete that circle. So it's learning things we couldn't do and then taking action on it, which is bringing all that together. And so that's where we sit is let's define all the things you need to define about your data that you're exposing to AI. And that is really good English language. Well, not doesn't have to be English language, natural language, explanations and prompts. So it says, hey, this field in this table in my Acumatica or in my NetSuite or in my Business Central means this to us. So when somebody asks a question about it, it interprets that, knows what it means, and brings it back. So that's where eOne fits in, and probably leads to some questions around MCP servers, which come up a lot, which is a layer. It's like an ODBC connector in the old days, but it's MPC that translates natural language to that connection to let it ask questions. And so we've got all the answers built inside our PopDoc tool, which will pass it through and let AI do its magic.
I love how that how you talk about how it can build upon and build upon and build upon and get more information and more information and more information, and then take action and gives insights. And it's just a great strategic way of following up with those unhappy customers, and not just saying, oh, we have these unhappy customers, I just send out an email kind of thing, right? You actually have the data, the analytics, the everything to support that and have a strategic follow-up.
Yeah, and there's lots of ways to deal with that. Like Katie talked about the agents and having an automated process and workflow. Where I think a lot of this ends up is, well, another analogy, when Windows mostly took away your menu structure. And so for anything you want to do on your computer, you hit the Windows button and you type Wi-Fi and it brings up your Wi-Fi connection screen. You don't have to search through menus to find it. I see a generic chat experience letting you interact with all of your business systems the same way. So you go to chat and you say, hey, give me my customers that meet this criteria in this scenario during these months, and it pulls it for you. You don't have to go into your accounting system to get it. And then you can say, go do this action over here, and it goes and does it. So you spend way less time inside your applications and way more time in this chat experience. And it's these MCP connections to each of these boxes, or in our case, one MCP connection to PopDoc, which can connect to all those 20 things for you. So we make it really easy to manage, one consistent UI across them all. It's what Satya came out and said a few months ago, that the UI of applications is going to go away. I laughed and said that's absolutely insane, but I think we're way closer to that already in 3 months, and the technology's changed since he said it, which I think enables it. But that's the whole point, is he could see things we didn't, and we'll spend more and more time. Just like already the world stopped Googling as much as they did, and they're now asking AI stuff. The point's very close, where you'll stop logging into a system to find out answers, and you will just be able to ask AI. But it's only as good as the descriptions and the interpretation of your business that you give to AI. An example that most people on this call will understand is if you've ever dug into tables and you say, hey, I want to look at the sales order transaction table. In that table, there's like 32 fields that have the term quantity in the name. There's the order quantity, there's the back order quantity, there's a fulfilled quantity, there's the quantity I can't fulfill now, there's the quantity in the warehouse. And if you just said to AI, hey, tell me the quantity about this, you're not going to let AI guess which field you're talking about. So you've got to have defined that and only expose the data you want. And that's where we're kicking in to go, hey, don't let AI guess. AI and those tools from business data is as good as a really fast intern. It's the way we pitch it inside in eOne. They'll do anything you want, and they'll work as fast as they can, but they're not very smart. And so you've really got to give that intern really clear instructions, and then they can work really hard and really well. And so AI is like a super smart intern, but needs really clear instructions.
Can we talk a little bit about data governance and what that means? Is it a real stumbling block for people, do you think?
Do you want me to take that, Katie?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think governance is everything. You don't, as I said earlier, you don't expose your data to people. You don't expose your data to the world. So number one, don't go uploading lists of your customers to ChatGPT. Now, I asked ChatGPT if they steal your data, and they said no, but I'm not fully convinced that I trusted the AI answer. So private AI is essential. A corporate strategy around AI is essential. Who you share that with internally is essential. So your IT team's going to set that up. They're going to decide whether you're using Gemini or Claude or ChatGPT or Perplexity or one of the models. They might use multiple models for different projects. But then you're going to say, hey, which components are we exposing and to whom? And you want to be very prescriptive about that. And we go down inside our tool to the end user, specific users, specific data sets, and that's all they can and can't see. And that's critical. Now, we want to go beyond that, though, and share this with external people. So we think, if we take eOne as an example, we've got 300 partners that sell our products. I would love for one of our partners to log into ChatGPT and say, who are my eOne customers expiring on subscription this week? And it knows that it's Aimee Keenan that asked the question, authenticate her, she can see her customers only, and it's connecting to our systems and it's returning a result of the customers that are expiring this week. That means you don't have to log into our portal. You don't have to know your passwords for eOne. You don't have to navigate the tool we happen to build for you to navigate and work out how to report and collect and print. We can do that all from one central place. I think that's so cool. But it only works if I can lock you down as a user and give you permission so you can access it. So that is the most important thing, I think, with AI is controlling it. There's no way you'll expose all your data. So we're very specific on choose which data you want, choose which fields you want. Here's the 15 fields that people can access. The rest is hidden. Nobody gets to see it. That's really as simple as it comes to with data governance and really locking it down.
All right, so Katie, are you ready to bring it all together? If I'm a business leader, how do I start without getting overwhelmed?
Yeah, and I think it's easy to get overwhelmed. And what I would say about that is you start small. I'd say you pick a high value ERP workflow. Maybe it's accounts payable automation, maybe it's month-end close. Measure it before you start your AI project so you have a really good baseline, and CFO would probably be able to know, okay, it takes me 8 to 10 days to do my month-end close. But kind of like Martin said, we highly recommend that you're on a paid version of AI. A lot of those paid plans they make sure that the data is that it's learning off of is only your data. You're not exposing your data to the world. And then I would say use MCP to connect your ERP and related systems. It's important that you have that data governed, kind of like Martin was talking about, and then you put your agent to work. So with your core process, for that month-end close scenario, you might, pull your unposted journal entries and run a few steps like cross-check against a bank feed. You might use the AI to flag anomalies like a duplicate payment or missing vendor invoices, and then draft that reconciliation report for the approver. So that's an example of a scenario where you would have a sequence of steps, and you would want to have your considerations. Where do you need that agent making some decisions or triaging or accounting for some other data? And then, of course, once it's built and live, or you need to test that, but once it's live, measure that ROI and communicate the results. I think if you can, we talk about it, eOne, one of our mottos is do well and let them talk. Like for your specific project, let's get that one thing really successful, that impactful ERP workflow, and then that'll breed some confidence within your team. So that's what I'd recommend. Martin, are there other scenarios you're thinking about too? I mean, I think of ERP data being really valuable across departments. We make it really important for our customer success, for example, to be able to access the right ERP data on our team.
Yeah, 100%. And it's as much as sharing that data across other teams as targeting this at, say, accountants. So there's scenarios where you go, hey, the value of this is the exposure of that data for a team that can mash it with their data and be smarter for it. So sometimes we talk about this and we go, look, our audience is not so much the controllers in some scenarios. It's going to be the sales team. It's going to be the support team. How is support smarter by getting access to the data and understanding things that are happening in other systems? And while a lot of that we could do before by hard coding things, the freedom to ask a question and get the answer is the big game changer. So, we've got a tool out there now that sits inside Zendesk, which is a help desk system. And when you pull up a ticket for a customer, it displays some data that we decided you should see from your accounting system. So it'll give you a list of invoices. That's nice. That helps the agent be smarter when somebody asks a question. Hey, invoice number 36, I never got a product. And we're hard coding that. But for them to be able to ask a question that then crosses systems, so it might look up FedEx as well as look up BC and mash that together and give them an answer. Much more powerful and something that I hadn't written code for because I don't always need to know that. But in this case, they did, and it'll run off and do both. So it's where we can hard code stuff, but having the freedom to ask a question across systems is the true power there.
Yeah, definitely. Before we wrap up our chat today, we do have a question. Can't someone with good SQL query skills correlate many of these business questions rather than using AI, which I'm sure you get this question a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of answers to that. And sometimes, yes, somebody with good skills can do it, but you don't know what data you're working with, and that can change, and you don't know the question that's going to be asked, so that can change. So let me give you an example. We're just playing with, because we do an integration, we write integration software. So we took a sample of getting bad data in a file. So somebody sent me a file, they wanted me to import it into the systems, but it had first names and last names and suffixes all mashed into one field. So it was, Mr. Jane Smith, and then somebody wrote J Smith, and then somebody wrote somebody else. And then the address was all smashed in. It was city, state, zip, country, all jammed into one field. Now, I could write code to kind of parse that out and split it up and go, where there's a space, drop this, but it would almost impossible to get that really nice. What I can do with AI now is say, hey, format this file for me into columns of first name, last name. Then I want city, state, zip, work it out. It knows what cities are. It knows what zip codes are. It can actually go off and clarify that the correct zip is tied to the correct city and state combination and pull that back. Writing code to do that with a complex thing with bad characters, bad data would be really difficult, and you're never quite sure what file you're going to get. So again, having a generic AI solution that works that out on the fly, this is the data I was given. This is what I know about the world. This is what I know about the prompt you gave me of how to split it up. It can run off and do that. So it's where the unknowns are the thing. Things like the example I gave earlier, which is, hey, tie this back with the sentiment from my support desk. It might be ServiceNow. So go and grab the data out of ServiceNow. Tell me who's grumpy and who's not, and tie that back with my ERP data. Doing that in SQL code is something you can't do because you can't code SQL for sentiment because it's not a field, it's not a column, it's a feeling, and nobody can write SQL to calculate a feeling. So there's things there that AI, and that's kind of where I started this whole conversation, is thinking about the things that you can't do now. You can code it. Yeah, you almost might as well just code it. But there's a whole bunch of things that we haven't even thought of yet that you can't code. I don't know whether that answers the question for Marsha, but I hope so. And I'm happy to connect with anyone on here.
Yeah.
And so kind of for the guys on here and those that listen to it later, we're really looking for, we're a month or so away from full release of what we're offering to interpret your business to AI. We'd love to work with some customers, some beta projects. We'll do some stuff for free, give you some trials, and we want your feedback. We want to know what you're trying to achieve. We want to know where we fit. And how we can hook in. And our mission is to get the data you need to your AI project, whether that is a agentic project, whether that's a generic LLM project, whether that's a forecasting project. We want to get the data there so it works for you and help you do it. So across all your systems, and we're agnostic. We don't mind what systems you're using.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on my monthly chat. What's the Buzz series? Thank you so much for being here and tuning in this month. We truly do appreciate it. And we can't wait to see you next month. So thank you, Katie and Martin. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, guys. And
Thanks,
if you've
Aimee.
got any questions, hit us up, martin.olsen@eonesolutions.com. I'd love to chat with you. Yeah, and explore the topics further. So